What's up, guys? All right, this is our Formula Supra update. A lot of fabrication has been happening. Dominic has been absolutely killing it as always, and I really like the way that the roll cage came out. This is the most involved cage I've ever been a part of with Dominic. I've never really had the tubes coming through the firewall and tying in all these different points of the chassis like this. So I'm gonna break it down for you guys and kind of walk you through it. So yeah, in the Formula D rulebook, they don't let you come through the firewall with the roll cage because they want to have the crumple zone remain OEM. So that if you have a crash, you're utilizing that crumple zone. So for this, since we're not going to be using this for professional competition in Formula Drift, we're going to be using this for hill climbs, time attack, and some special projects for drifting. So we wanted to tie in all points and really make this thing as structurally sound as possible. So in the front here, which if you guys don't know, on the GR Supras, they have an aluminum strut tower and aluminum frame rail that goes all the way back. So we really wanted to strengthen this up since we did take some other material off the car. So what Dominic did is he made 2 points. So this top bar comes from the main point of the roll cage in the front here, and there's a joint where a lot of tubes come together, so you know it's a really good structure point. And what he does is he runs the bar into another bar so that you have all these points that have a lot of extra strength involved in them. So you're not just putting this bar, say, in the middle of another bar where it doesn't have a structure behind it. So it just kind of adds in a little bit more support for it, which is awesome. So that joint comes from the roll cage in the front here, comes through the firewall into the strut tower. Dom really made this cool top hat for it. And that point goes right in line with this down tube that goes right to the front of the frame rail. So everything kind of is in line with each other as far as structure. And they triangulated it with this bar that goes to the center of the dash bar. And the dash bar is then tied into the bottom of the transmission tunnel. So everything kind of has its own structure point. And the way Dom did this is just to make sure that everything is as strong as possible without overdoing it. So we're using 1.25" 095 chromoly. Dominic made his own custom die to really tie in the door bars and make them really cool. We want to make the door bars tighter together to just give it a little bit more room, which I think came out really good. And we have it set out so that when the door closes, it closes into the door. So you have more room for your arm and your legs, and just getting in and out of the vehicle will be a little easier as well. And then we did these down bars on the cage. This is at 1.25" as well, that come down so that you have a little extra support in the front of the roll cage. So in the back here, it's really short in the back, so all this roll cage looks very condensed. And Dom did 2 X bars, which came out really nice. So we did an X bar for the main hoop. These are 2 harness bars on each side. He put 2 gussets on here to really help join the two. And then in the back here, he did another X bar and then another crossbar on the bottom. So there's actually a lot of added structure support in the back. After kind of cutting this out and cutting the rear structure of the car off, we wanted to really tie everything back together on the rear of the car, just because you're taking so much metal off of it. You need to make sure that you're utilizing the specific mounting points and joints to add that structure back in so that it's even better than it was before. So the amount of metal that we cut off this car in sheet metal and brackets, the interior and all the other stuff, we probably added back in with the roll cage. But that's perfectly fine because we're adding extra safety into it and making this car completely sound and safe for me to drive it at high rates of speed and feel confident about it. So when you're building a roll cage, you want to tie in all of these main points of the car. You want bars coming off the main hoop to come down to 2 main structure points in the back of the car. You want the main hoop to add to 2 nice structure points in the middle of the car behind the driver's seat. And then in the front of the car, you want 2 main points to tie the roll cage into to the front of the floor. It sucks because you got to put yourself in that scenario, right? You got to think about if you did crash, how this car could come apart and how it could crumple and whatnot. So you want to just think about that when you're designing a roll cage and pick up all these safety points so that you have that confidence when you're driving a car to know that you are safe as can be inside of it, and everything should be good. So you try to pick up all those main structure points on the car and design it around those points pretty much. I'm Ryan Tuerck, and on this episode of Y2, we're going to talk about engine types. Most of these are designed for the track, but I want to talk about what many of you have in your vehicles, because not everybody has a Ferrari engine swap in their daily driving. One type of engine technology that has been around for a long time is fuel injection, and more specifically, port fuel injection, or PFI. In a PFI engine, the injector is located in the intake port where air and gas mix together and are then introduced into the combustion chamber where it is combusted. A newer type of engine technology is gasoline direct injection, also known as GDI, which you can find in many newer vehicles today. In a GDI engine, the injector is located in the combustion chamber, not the intake port. This helps improve gas mileage and performance, but causes some unique carbon deposit issues compared to port-injected engines. Regardless of what engine you have, the parts are going to get carbon buildup, which will lead to reduced gas mileage, poor acceleration, and increased emissions. In the next Y2 episode, we'll discuss the parts that make up these engines and learn how the deposits on these parts cause a variety of engine problems. It's my GV4 V10, 4-liter, Series 1. Getting sorted for the engine dyno by Ron here.
Hello.
Thanks, Ron.
All right.
So as you guys know, this is it for me. This has been my dream project for such a long time, ever since I saw George Plaza's BMW and finding out what Judd was as a company and what they did and what they made. So this is their GV4 4-liter. They call this the Series 1 V10. That makes about 730 horsepower, 750 horsepower unrestricted, and revs to 11,000 RPMs. I can't get over just staring at this thing. I've had it for so long, and there's just been so much work that's been going into this thing. And it's just such a work of art for me. It's something so different than what we're used to with inline 6 turbocharged and 4-cylinder turbocharged engines and you know, big displacement V8s here in the States. So this is something that I've been into for so long, just being such a fan of Formula One. And this is actually more catered towards LeMans racing. So this is one of Judd's endurance engines. So this should be able to handle a 24-hour endurance race. And Judd actually won in some of the 24-hour LeMans races with those teams that they supplied engines for with this exact engine, the GV4. So I got my hands on it secondhand. It's a 0-mile engine, but I got it secondhand as it was somebody's spare. And they used to put these, or they started putting these engines into the late model F1 cars, like the late 90s Formula One cars that are being bought for historic racing. And those engines obviously being phased out, and you can't really find rebuild parts, so you're having to reverse engineer a lot of parts for the rebuilds on those engines. So a lot of what those guys are doing are retrofitting these Judd V10s in those chassis, just because they still make parts for these. These are 3,000-mile engines. 3,000 kilometer engines before needing a rebuild interval. So for them, they can get a full season out of running an engine like this before it needs a rebuild, which is really cool. So let me go through the engine real quick. It's obviously a 4-liter V10, 730 horsepower, revs to 11,000 RPMs, individual throttle body. And you can see through here, this is a slide throttle. So when you open it up, it actually goes right straight to the valve down there, which is really cool. So it's just right on top of everything. On the side here, so everything is driven off of reduction gears. So there's all these reduction gears in the front here. So everything is gear driven. There's no chain drive, there's no belt or anything like that. So there's a gear in the front here and this main shaft, and that runs, this is the water pump, oil pump, or scavenge pump, I forget which side I'm at, and alternator. And then on this side, again, is the water pump, and then the dry sump pump. So everything is driven off reduction gears. Even the cams up top are driven off the gears, and it's totally enclosed and encased. So there's nothing external on this thing, no moving parts that are outside of the case, which is really cool. And this engine, the mounting points are very unique because this thing is mounted in Formula cars, and it's utilized basically as a part of the chassis because they run transaxle. So you're gonna have mounts on the bottom here of the engine, and then up top here on top of the valve cover. That's why I see this extra material on top of the valve cover so that they can mount the engine up there. And the same on the back side too. There's 2 pickup points on the head, the top of the block right here, and then the bottom of the block down here. And this engine only weighs 320 pounds, I believe. It's actually really light, and Dominic and I have moved this thing around multiple times of just picking it up with the 2 of us and kind of moving it and not needing really an engine crane to get it around, which is really cool. So the biggest theme that we are going for with this Formula Supra build is really the power to weight ratio. So for us to be competitive, I think in some of the open time attack classes, we really want to have this car dialed with a really light chassis and a really potent, powerful engine, but definitely need to utilize the lightness of the chassis and what the overall build is to perform in that class.